Hello everybody and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today I've got a 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1 free-for-all for you. This is being played on a new map. It's called the Plains of TUMHALAD. It is the location of an important historical battle during the First Age of Middle-earth. These are the plains on which was fought the Battle of TUMHALAD, which saw the end of the power of Nargothrond and the fall of yet another elven kingdom. Today, however, we are going to have the elves of Doriath and the elves of Silmarillion, as well as the Philothrim and the House of Fingolfin squaring off. So, without any further ado, let's jump into it. And so, let's take a look at some of the army comps here, and then we can jump into this game. Now, this is my first attempt. Actually, before we get started at all, I would like to mention, just as fair warning, that this was a game that I did on my latest Silmarillion live stream. So if you caught that stream, then the outcome of this battle will be nothing new to you. Just fair warning. But in any case, this is my first attempt at kind of a shooty, stabby army. So I've got a lot of skirmishers here, and I've broken my army up into 3 separate wings, all of which have their own control groups, so they can be mobile and kind of self-sufficient. I've got 2 scouts of Gelion here. They're going to be hiding out. I've also got 2 hunters of Rathloriel, equally hiding, as we are the elves of Silmarillion. We're all about that life. I've also got 2 of the outriders of Dwylwyn, and they are a spear cavalry unit. So they're kind of a hybrid, I guess, between melee cavalry and lancers, although they're a little bit better against wargs, as they have a big old pointy stick. But they are reasonably well suited to fighting cavalry, but of course they don't have as good of a charge value, and they aren't super strong against infantry. Infantry can do very, very well against them because they'll take a melee defense penalty. I've brought the full capacity of Earthen Tower. I've got about 250 of them here. 2 units, full units on the front, and I've got a detachment here, which is actually where my general is going to be hanging out. I've also got 2 spear hosts of Gelion. They are in loose formation, so that they can hide. Units in spear wall can't hide at all. So if you're wondering why it says your spear host of Gelion can hide anywhere, and then they don't actually hide in game, well, this is why. You have to put them in this kind of formation here. And then they can just be reassembled and quickly brought together in order to fight kind of normally. I've got a unit of Ents as well. And on each of my wings, actually no, I've only just got the 1 unit here. I've got the Randirum and Tolgalen, although N in this case is of. These are the only true ranger unit in Silmarillion Total War. So they have a potential to do a lot of damage. You're going to see them do some serious work in this battle. There's my other company, the Outriders of Dwylwyn. And then I've got some detachments over here. So I've got 2 detachments of Spear Host of Rathloriel, and 2 detachments of Skirmishers of Rathloriel. In addition, out front I've got a couple sentries of Gelion. And I think that pretty well does. I don't have any more sneaky elements to my army. So let's go ahead and see what my immediate opponent rather, has brought today. We're going to be playing directly against Doriath, controlled by Griffin 8991. He's got Spear Host of the Girdle, and some Axe Guard of Region as well. Very scary units for us Silmarillion. The Axe Guard in particular can really chew out our lines. We're going to have to be careful with how we choose to engage them. Also got some Marksmen of Region here, some Kuthalim, armor-piercing archers, and the Marksmen are more of a specialist unit, which probably not super useful against the Silmarillion, but you know what, I could see the extra skirmish power being brought just because you want to be able to clap back a little bit against Silmarillion. They are quite lightly armored. That's something you can take advantage of. He's got some Sword Host here. A little bit lower on the damage side of things than the Axe Guard, but their defensive stats are a good deal higher, with better shield value in addition to their higher melee defense. Over here, got some Donath and Mablung. So we've got 2 units of the Bodyguard here. Both of them are going to be making an appearance on the field today. Behind them, a couple units of Warriors of Region. We have a detachment of Shield Bearers. Ah! We've also got some mounted company hanging out here as well. I think there's just 1 mounted company. And over here we've got Rangers. I think there's 2 units of Rangers of the Girdle in total. And there, again, another detachment. And then speaking of detachments, we've got another detachment of the Shield Bearers of Region. Now, what you don't see, and which will be a problem for me a little bit later on, is that there's actually 2 of the hidden Lancer units out here. I think they're like the Scouts of the Girdle or something like that. They're very, very fast, extremely lightly armored and unshielded. But their charge is good, and their speed really just can't be matched, except by another light cavalry unit. So, it'll be interesting to see what he can get done with that surprise. Over here, we have the army of KOT and Melkon. This is the Knights of Turin, one of the Silmarillion guilds that has popped up on our Discord. He has Blade Masters of Baird Ithel, got 2 of them here. He's also got 1, 2, 3, 4 by the looks of it, of the Bladesmen of Baird Ithel. Really strong infantry unit, very high on their melee defense. They're adept at staying alive in close quarters. That being said, they are a little bit more lightly armored than the other Noldoran houses, kind of generally, such as the House of Feanor is the really standout, well-armored faction there. But they are higher in their melee defense than the others, so it does kind of work out for them. Up here, Marines of Vinyamar, 2 units of them. These are armor-piercing javelins, and they're okay-ish rather medium infantry in close quarters when all is said and done. Only got 2 of the Sentries of Hithlum today. So these are some of the Edain from the House of Hador. You can't see their trademark golden hair as it is hidden and well protected beneath a helmet. You always want to protect your hair in combat, of course. Over here, got some Herdsmen of Hithlum, more of the Edain. And they are an armor-piercing shock unit that also has a missile. Got the Armitar of Baird Ithel here, the Elite Swordsmen of Baird Ithel. They're kind of like the Bladesmen of Baird Ithel, but turned up to 11. They can also inspire nearby units, so they're a decent support infantry in addition to all the other cool things they do. Got some Verdsmen of Norloman here, low-tier spears for the House of Hador. I think we have a second one over here. No, it doesn't look like it, but we do have some Armitar, and another company of the Herdsmen of Hithlum, and the frightening, the beautiful Sons of Hurin. They are Loch Morale. These guys will never run away. They're armor-piercing, and they hit like trucks. Their defensive stats are a little bit lower. They've got only about 12 melee defense, about the same as the Elven units. The Elven line infantry here, specifically the Bladesmen, which is pretty low for a bodyguard tier unit. They've also got a mild shield value, and their armor is only at about 8. So, they can potentially be brought low in melee, but they are going to hit you so hard back for it. And for using these guys as a supporting unit, or as potentially like an anti-cavalry unit, they can do very well for themselves, although the lower melee defense against the higher tier lancers will prove to be a problem for them. So you do have to defend them, and they do have some fairly marked weaknesses. And you can actually see Fingolfin, the High King himself, hanging out here. And you're going to see more of him on some official artwork that we'll be having out in an indeterminate amount of time. Probably a few months, though. But that exact model will be used in this, and it's going to be really cool. So over here, we have the Lancers of Anon in Galuth. 2 companies of them. I think that's going to do. So not a lot of ranged firepower here. Didn't even opt for his archer, the mainline archers at all. This is going to be a purely rush build, and it's pretty scary. There's a lot of nasty stuff in there, very infantry focused. Let's pop on over to the final army. We got Scouts of Eglarest here. This is a Phalas army commanded by King Amar. So 2 Scouts of Eglarest, medium, high tier. Medium refers mostly to their armor value, and the high tier is their tier value. So medium, high tier melee cavalry, they're pretty damned good at what they do. Spear Host of Berthombar have been brought to the field today. Got 1, 2 units of them at the very least. Also got some of the Mariners of Earendil, the legendary company for the Philothera. They are an equivalent to the warriors of Eglarest. You can sort of see some similarities there in their armor and their armament. However, the Mariners of Earendil have a massive morale buff. It is 2 morale, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's in a 100-meter radius. And the Philothera already have some pretty decent morale, so that's going to buff up your entire army. It's a really good kind of discount bodyguard unit, and then you can use some of the actual bodyguard tier units, like the Yaran Kirlim, for example, on your front lines. You can combine them with some of the nobles of Balar. Now, some people seem to think they are pikes. They're not pikes. They are 2-handed spears. The difference being they don't have the range of pikes, but they do have the high melee defense and staying power of spears. So halberds have the same range as a 2-handed spear unit, but they're a little bit more focused on fighting infantry. So they have a different damage type. These guys use piercing. Halberds use slashing, which is just generally better against infantry and doesn't take certain penalties. So, a really strong holding unit. You can buff up their armor in addition to, so they are an excellent defensive unit. And you can also use them with their range, with the range disparity between them and regular infantry, fairly offensively as well, depending on the situation. Here we have some Marines of Eglarest. These are dedicated skirmishers for the Philothera. They are also a spear hybrid. So they've got armor-piercing javelins, and they have spears in addition. Got some marksmen of Balar here. Pretty well what you'd expect them to be. They are high-tier archers, but they also have really good armor, which isn't something that most of the Philothrum can boast. So really, the marksmen of Balar, the nobles of Balar, and the Arankir Lim, and to a lesser extent, the Arain Ephedun that have decent armor. Everything else in the Philothrum is light or medium. More of the marksmen here, more marines, some more nobles, and there's some Arankir Lim mixed in there as well. I really like the Arankir Lim model, so let me show you it a little bit closer if I can. Let me get a good shot of them. There they are. Perfect. Yeah, there's some elements of Dol Amroth there with the swan iconography and the shield and so forth, but there's also some high elven resources that were used in the creation of this unit as well. And then finally, we have the personal retinue of Círdan himself, the Arain Ephedun. And this is a model very close to my heart. It took me a lot of tweaking to get it to look right, and I really am satisfied with how it came out. There's a lot of different resources in here. We used some of the stuff from Gondor, used some stuff from Taurion, some original assets from him, and some other stuff as well. And we did a little bit of retexturing in addition to all of that. And that's going to do for the Philothrum army. It's pretty formidable, a lot more on the skirmish side of things, with their 2 units of the Marksmen of Balar, but altogether this is a pretty competent Philothrum army, so we'll see how they manage to do. But I'm going to pop on over to my side now, where I've got my sentries of Gelion, and we are fixing to start a skirmish fight here with the armies of Doriath. Now, I can see that he's going for the hill, so I'm going to use my Scouts of Gelion here to try and put some pressure on these marksmen while they are turned and focused elsewhere, trying to fight my poor sentries of Gelion. So a little bit of a misfire there, it would seem. That's a potentially very painful enfilading fire coming in from my 2 companies of Scouts of Gelion. Doesn't look like we managed to kill too many of them. Well, some. We managed to kill some. And he's going to advance and sort of chase my horse archer, so that's a little bit of a micro lapse here on the part of Griffin. I'm definitely not in a place where they want to be shooting at my troops. But this is where it gets ugly, because I brought them over here to shoot at the exposed flank of the mounted company, and then the Outriders of the Girdle came out, and there's this huge surround going off here. And because my unit was in this very long kind of column formation, actually the ends of them are going to get nibbled at. It's going to be a lot easier to kind of catch them, and enough of them will get caught in close quarters that they're going to try and turn around and fight. It's just sort of the AI of Medieval 2 being wacky and weird. But the Outriders of the Girdle are so fast as well that they're going to be able to keep pace with my Sentries of Gelion, so this unit is basically doomed at this point. So really nice play there from Griffin. I honestly didn't expect to see the Outriders of the Girdle. I don't see them very often, and we're trying to save them, or maybe pull some of them off so we can create an avenue for escape for my Sentries of Gelion, because I'm trying to weave and go back and forth and exploit any openings that I see. But unfortunately, it's just not enough. And the light cavalry is just so fast, and my Sentries of Gelion here are just going to get kind of gobbled up, essentially. Now down to 26. I'm going to try and turn them again because I see an opportunity here to maybe get away. But they're basically going to break here from all the casualties, and they've been reduced to next to nothing anyway. So goodbye, my sentries. Really good play there on the part of the Doriath player. I'm trying to kind of punish him a little bit. I brought forth my Sentries of Gelion. We've got the Marksmen of Region here, who are also supporting his troops. So really nice combined arms approach here on the part of Griffin. I was actually quite impressed by that. I see those Silverthorn arrows popping off, claiming a few of my poor sentries. But I'm going to continue to chase these guys because I really want to get a piece of the Outriders. And they're nice and bunched up and kind of asking for it. But elsewhere, I've begun to pull back some of my troops. So you can see a general advance here on the part of Doriath. He's managed to sweep a lot of my cavalry from the field, so he's feeling comfortable enough to come down now off of that hill. So they're all advancing in fairly good order. And now I'm going to try and do my shooty, kitey, kind of range stabby thing, which isn't something that I usually employ, but it was when you're playing as the Elves of Osirion, it is definitely a viable strategy. So we're going to pop off a few volleys here as they come down. I think what we're going after currently is the Axe Guard. They've got a little bit less shield value than the other units, so from the front, our 6 missile damage is going to match up pretty well against their 8 armor and their 6 shield. My next targets are, of course, going to be things like the Donath and Mablung, and most importantly, the Warriors of Region. They are extremely vulnerable to missile fire, and I want to make sure that I focus them down as best as I'm able. Popping off another volley here. Looks like, again, we're going after the Axe Guard. Managed to kill off about 20 of them. Weaken that wing. We're now starting to switch our fire to some of the other Axe Guard units, try and deal some damage to them, but now Doriath's going to pick up the pace, and they are going to rush towards us. And now is a good time to begin to activate some of my hidden cavalry. Some Outriders of Dwelin moving forward. I think I got a second company of them over here. Yes, they're moving in support of the sentries of Gelion. I've managed to take another bite there out of some of the Outriders. We've at least weakened his cav a little bit, but he is in still a pretty decent position. But then again, so are we. We've got 2 Outriders of Dwelin, more than enough to deal with a single unit of mounted company of Region. And I've also got my light horse archers who can very swiftly fell the Outriders of the Girdle. Can already see them moving forward here. I can see him trying to make one of these units stop moving so that they can begin to hide again. But of course, if you target them before they're able to do that, you can continuously fire at them. So a little pro tip there. If people are trying to hide units on you, just attack them before they have a chance to hide. And even after they go into their hidden stance, you'll still be able to shoot them. A little bit of sneakiness there. So we're going to continue to pound away at those Outriders of the Girdle. I've got my other company of Outriders of Dwelin right here. My idea was I would try and break up his advance a little bit, but I also didn't want to charge into Spearhost. And I didn't want to move them too early and give him a chance to kind of see my hand in case he had forgotten about those units. So we're falling back here again. Skirmishers of Rathloriel, other units beginning to fall back, and I've got my Urfin and Tower, who just used all their ammunition, who are kind of covering the retreat as the rest of our troops began to fall back. And we're just going to kind of like layer our retreat here so that while other elements of our army are retreating, the others are firing. So I've got my Scouts of Gelion getting themselves in a position where they can continue to execute that strategy. Over here, I've managed to move my Outriders of Dwelin just a little bit, and I want to move them back towards my army. Got my second company over here who are just hanging out. And my Sentries of Gelion are continuing to do good work. So we have Rangers of the Girdle here, and Marksmen of Region, who are moving forward in order to continuously pursue my sentries and not really give them time to kind of fire endlessly at his poor lightly armored cavalry, which is a decent enough strategy. They're not going to be super useful against my very spread out army that's quite quick. Whereas he's got cavalry support nearby, and he can just kind of fend me off with the Sentries of Gelion and keep his cavalry safe. And if I tried to go after him with my Outriders, well, then he'd be able to activate his cavalry and then defend them that way. So a really nice 1-2 punch here from Griffin. Move back here. I think we've managed to get a piece of some of the warriors so far. And this, I think we're going to move back still just a little bit more. My Skirmishers of Rathloriel here, looking like they were popping off a few shots, but now they're going to be forced to retreat as there are detachments moving in to contest the ground. And I don't want to get them dead for no reason. So we're going to continuously move back here. And this is pretty well where we're going to have to make our stand. We're quite close to the red lines. We can only do this for so long. Scouts of Gelion are here. Hopefully they manage to get off another shot. Maybe not. Maybe I lost a little bit of micro on them. It happens. Outriders here, we managed to reduce next to next to nothing. You can kind of see the strengths and very pronounced weaknesses of the Outriders of the Girdle. Once the lid is blown off your surprise, especially against Silmarillion, people are going to be gunning for them, and they're going to be looking for any opportunity that they can to shut those units down. And they'll also be very, very much aware of the fact that you intend to use them against them. So, what we got here? Looks like they're going after the Warriors of Region, focusing down one of those axe units at a time. A little bit of spill over into Donath and Mablung, so we're going to hit 2 units here for kind of the price of 1. We're going to cut down about 1/5 of their fighting strength, which is pretty good. And then these guys are going to be forced to fall back. And now we're going to have to use our Hunters of Rathloriel. as our front line. And we'll support them with the Urfin and Tower, and we're going to do our best here to beat down the forces of Doriath. Got my Spear Host here. I think this is more of a micro mistake on my part. No, looks like they will manage to kind of escape. Maybe. I'm going to keep falling back, trying to keep my formation contiguous. And we're also stringing out our opponent here. So a nasty double volley there into the Donnath and Mablung. Going to weaken them substantially. It's unlikely that we'll get a second volley off, but we are supporting with some of our archers. Looks like I just capped one of my own guys, just brained one of my own Hunters of L'Oreal. That sucks. They're going to get caught up by those axemen, and that's really going to hurt. But these guys will have a chance to toss another volley into the Donnath and Mablung. And we're going to continue to weaken this very important melee unit. Meanwhile, Outriders of Dweilwyn going for a nice little cheeky rear charge here into the Axe Guard. They're going to get their lances down, and we're going to hit them pretty hard. That's very nasty indeed. And they're going to lose quite a lot of their number off of that charge. And we're trying to avoid the Spear Host if at all we can. And then we're going to go for a little bit of a pincer movement here. So I've got my Outriders of Dweilwyn. They're going to take these guys head on. And these Spear Hosts are not going to be braced, so they're going to take the full brunt of that charge. It looks like I pulled them out for some reason. I probably should have committed there. It wasn't really worth it to throw these guys into the front of them otherwise, unless we're going to have a devastating kind of 1-2 punch. But I think the impetus here was that a lot of his more far-flung units had begun to return, and I'm going to need my cavalry to fight them. So that's probably what was in my head, but I did end up losing a lot of Outriders of Girdle here, or Outriders of Dweilwyn, against the Spear Host, for not really a ton of tangible gain. And now these Outriders are now out of position, so that's a big oops for me. Sentries of Gelion here, still in the back lines, trying to pick away at people. I think they probably shooting at the Outriders. Nope, we're actually going after the Mounted Company, trying to whittle them down if at all possible. Oh, Outriders of Dweilwyn here, going for a nice little cheeky charge. I think I probably mismicroed them, and I was trying to go after the Outriders of the Girdle, so Griffin kind of baited me into his spears there, so really well done on his end. Nice cheeky charge from my full company, or more or less, of the Outriders of Dweilwyn. So two Outrider units squaring off against each other. Mine are by far higher quality, and so the Outriders are going to be in a lot of trouble here. I've also got some Ents that are moving forward to try and help them out. I've got some reserves here, but on the front lines, even with the addition of the Urfin and Tower, we're still kind of struggling. It's still fairly even, but we are not doing terrible at the moment. Spear Host of L'Oreal here squaring off against the Spear Host of the Girdle. It's just a detachment though, so they are ultimately going to be overwhelmed here by numbers, and there's some Shield Bearers of Region in there as well. Got my Skirmishers of L'Oreal, and I think they're probably focusing on the center here, where the Warriors of Region are present. And so far, it seems to be going reasonably well. Got my Ents and my my Outriders here supporting each other. My Sentries of Gelion are still picking away at his cavalry. There's some more reserve units coming up, and that will of course be something that's not easy to deal with. I've got some archers here. Looks like my Rendirim. Ah, the Rendirim have been activated. That's pretty significant. I think they're definitely going after that big old blob there. And this is probably a good move on the part of Griffin, getting himself behind my own infantry so I can't shoot them with Rendirim, because they would chew out the Warriors of Region equally as well. Ooh, nasty. Countercharge here from my Outriders. Really a good matchup for them, especially with the Ents in support, because their high charge value matches up really nicely with the Axe Guard's really low melee defense. So against the Sword Host, that charge would have been fairly anemic, like maybe we would have got 20 or so guys, but here we wiped out a huge number of that unit. His cavalry is going to countercharge, seeing the dire straits that his infantry is in. We're going to be able to definitely move away with our light lancers. And they'll be able to extract themselves from that pretty sticky situation more or less unscathed. And meanwhile, of course, we still have our Sentries of Gelion pew-pewing away. But while things are going good for us right now, this is a problem. So the other two players have sent their cavalry in advance of their armies. You can see the Fingolfin host very slowly making its way over here. And at the same time that they're doing that, we've also got the Philothrim cavalry out in the field and looking to predate on some very occupied Sylvan Elf forces. So my Spear Host here, they're holding up these units while we kind of win in the center, which is good. More or less got them surrounded. The Donathan and Blung were quite heavily weakened, so my Urfin and Tower are mopping them up along with the rest of his infantry. There's a minor surround going on there, and these warriors here are also getting beat down as well. His cavalry has been defeated, so Doriath is having troubles here. It's not completely destroyed, but like it's in tatters basically. And now we get a big old charge here into the rear of my poor Spear Host. I've switched my archer's attention onto the scouts. I'm going to try and deal as much damage to them as I possibly can. I've still got some units in reserve, I think. No, I've actually begun to move forward with my Spear Host of Gelion in order to mop up what's left of Doriath. Outriders of Dwylwyn, a decent charge here, trying to rout off the Spear Host. We've still got some Urfin and Tower as well. So these Spear Hosts are not too long for this world. We'll be able to run them off pretty quickly, and he sees that he's going to move in with his cavalry now as well. But of course we've got Lancers to be afraid of as well. Where did they end up going? Oh yeah, the Lancers of Anon and Galuth are just kind of hanging out a little bit. I managed to get some shots off at least one of them. So I'm like fighting Doriath here while simultaneously trying to fend off the cavalry of two other factions. It's interesting. This is a really intense battle. My sentries are starting to run a little bit low on ammunition, but we do have a lot of things going in our favor currently. A lot of units here that aren't being microed. Definitely want to throw them in here and wipe out what's left of Doriath, or maybe send my Ents into his archers. Randirum, not too sure what they're going after right now. My cavalry, my Outriders, doing their best. I've got maybe about 50 of them left. But Griffin is striking back with his cavalry right now. Looks like these scouts of Eglarest have pulled out here. MR's managed to take very, very little in the way of casualties while picking on my poor units. I think his next big target is going to be this blobbed up kind of skirmisher line. So I've got my Spear Host here fighting with some victorious forces from the Doriath line. They managed to push their way through my detachments, but they're being surrounded by my skirmishers of Rath L'Oriel. My Spear Hosts are of course in there, and my Scouts of Gelion are going to manage to skirt away as well, and hopefully begin to fire, but of course Amar is going to try and run me down with his cavalry. Some more. This is really sluggish micro on my part. I really needed to be moving forward here and try and like push into these Doriath units before their marksmen and all those other things can scythe through my poor beleaguered troops. Over here, picking on the mounted company of Region, managing to get a nice surround off here, which will hopefully kill off this unit, but there's still some of the Axe Guard who are present, and they're trying to move in there and support. So finally I'm going to get my act together, begin to move forward with my Urfin and Tower and my other such units. Ents here definitely want to go after the marksmen. We could wipe them out with the Urfin and things like that. We've basically defeated Doriath for the most part. There's still a few elements of his army remaining. Spear Host here, detachments of shield bearers, and some other nasty stuff. But my biggest problem now is, of course, all this extra cavalry that's coming my way. So let's kick things up to full speed. And I was winning so hard here. Oops. And they're going to get a beautiful rear charge there that's just going to cut through my line and fundamentally alter the balance of power here. Like, we definitely were winning that fight hard. And now Doriath is actually going to help me out a little bit here. Get a piece of those Scouts of Eglarest. Kill off a few of them, and while they're doing this, my Scouts are of course ripping through them. I'm trying to exact a toll here from the Scouts. They just about routed. I'm moving over now with my Outriders, but I kind of have my hands full. I need to get my Outriders kind of working on my end to try and finish off this fight with Doriath. So we can see marksmen there. And these are the ranged units moving forward. I want to disrupt them, and I want to kill them if I can. Kuthalim have been committed alongside a unit of marksmen, so we've managed to at least cut off some of his range support. A decent enough charge here from my Outriders will kill off a fairly high amount of the marksmen of Region. But they're going to countercharge there, and there are no slouches in melee, so I don't want to keep my cavalry in there for too long. Quickly turn down the sound here. It seems very, very loud. No, it's about where it should be. Alright. And now he's going to consolidate some of the gains that were allowed to him by the Falathrim cavalry. And they're coming for my my little archers here, but I've also got my Spearhost of Gelion in there, so they're definitely not going to want to stick around. I'm going to charge headlong into those spears. They managed to sandwich a unit of my Scouts of Gelion, so they're now down to about 64. And then the Lancers of Anon in Galud at the same time are going after my Rangers. Luckily, my Rangers managed to use their full ammunition. And these Scouts here are going to switch tack at the last moment there, and they go after my Scout skin. We've managed to push back the other unit at least, rout them off. There's only about 2 of them remaining. And Doriath is actually 1 on this side, which is a really big shame because we were winning very heavily here. We had a ton of our elite axemen still left over, but they were wiped out by an opportunistic charge there from the Falathrim. It was definitely hard not to feel picked on in this battle. Nasty charge there into the marksman by the Urfinen Tower. And they're doing just fine. At the same time, supporting charge from the rear by the Outriders. And those marksmen are having a very bad day indeed. My spear host here, along with my Ents, trying to clean up what remains of Doriath, but it's just such a struggle. I was really counting on having more of my forces able to finish these engagements quickly, but unfortunately, they were delayed or cut down by the intervention of 2 enemy armies. And so we've managed to kill one of Amar's cavalry units and maul the other unit, whereas the Lancers of Anon in Galud, I believe, they've taken some damage as well. I don't know what they went after here. It might be that they killed off the rest of my Scouts, probably. And it's looking like that was indeed the case, or rather the sentries of Gelion. And now they're looking for another opportunity here. My Rendirim. Think they're going to go after... I have no idea. There's not really any good targets for them here, is there? Most of Doriath is dead. Unless they're going after this here. That would make some sense. Oh yeah. Cutting through what remains of the Doriath line. I think that was their last shot. So they've pulled out their swords now. I can safely throw them in here and help out what remains of my infantry corps. Still, I don't play Assyrian very often, and I was pleasantly surprised with how well the strategy worked out. If it wasn't for the intervention of our enemy cavalry, then we would have come out of this battle with a fair amount in reserve. We would definitely have had maybe 150 or so axemen. We could have possibly had some Ents and some other things left over. Yeah, we would still have been a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield, but unfortunately, we're not going to have too much left by the time all is said and done. So we've got some spear host here that managed to survive the storm. Charge there from my remaining Outriders of Dweilwyn into the rear of the spear host, trying to effect some sort of rout here. But I think Doriath still has their general. Indeed, you can see Thengol himself fighting on the front lines. Get a good shot of him. Oof, my mouse is going crazy. And he keeps turning around. Damn it, Thengol. Oh, he's just trolling us at this point. He's camera shy. Another charge here by my cavalry. We'll bowl over a lot of these remaining units. But the high melee defense of the Spearmen will allow them to survive that charge. And I'm converging with everything that I've got left, but there's not too much. Nice charge here for my Rendirim. They're not terrible in close quarters. They may surprise you. And they have a really good melee defense as well. So they'll be enough to cut down these guys. Oh, that poor Girdle guardsman. And then in my back, I've still got Scouts of Gelion who have a decent amount of ammo, about half ammo. And a nearly full unit of Spearhost of Gelion in addition to some skirmishers. So we're a mess, but it's not as bad as it could have been. Scouts of Eglares look like they've come back now, preying on what remains of the Rangers of the Girdle. I'm gonna go ahead and kick it into full speed now. Might even fast forward just a little bit while we wrap up this engagement. I think you can kind of see the direction that this is going in. Like, we're definitely gonna beat Doriath. Doriath doesn't have the troops left to contest the field with us. They're done. That was a fight that we managed to eke out a win in. But then, of course, we're very dangerously placed, aren't we? The host of Hithlum has arrived, as well as the Philothrum. And if we're not careful, we will get ourselves pinned in between them. And there's still cavalry left over, too. So I'm going to send forth some of my skirmishers here. Try and finish this fight if I can. I think I've got some of my scouts of Gelion who are pew-pewing away into here. Probably not the best idea, and I think what I'm going to do is have them focus now on some of these lancers. Now there will be some shots that go off. Might manage to claim the lives of a couple of those lancers. Yeah, looks like we managed to get a few of them. Just trying to keep that cavalry at bay. But I won't be able to do it for too much longer once the full army of the Nolor arrives. So we kind of need to finish this, and it's getting a little bit desperate here. So at this point, I've killed enough of Doriath that I'm kind of satisfied, and so I'm going to leave them to their own fate. I'm going to leave behind a unit of Spear Host here, and they're going to kind of hold the line a little bit. And I think maybe my general is in here somewhere. Possibly. Indeed he is. Yeah. So my general's going to get killed in that retreat. Thingol and his retinue will succeed in bringing low Denethor. But I will manage to escape with most of my remaining forces. Just a moment, please. Damn, I always forget to turn off my Discord. But anyway, so we're going to retreat with everything we have left. And the Lancers of Anon and Galu are coming forward to attempt to harry our retreat if they can. These skirmishers, I don't know what they're doing. I think I might have just forgot them. Bit of a micro mistake there. Lancers of Anon and Galu are going to try and get a piece of them. I'm going to come forward with my Spear Host. Then they're going to circle back and try and skirt along the red line here. Maybe go after some of my more squishy units that can't really stand up to a charge like that. So I got my scouts there. I'm going to stop them. I'm going to start them firing. And now Melkon's going to turn around with his lancers. And they're going to take some more casualties as they retreat. That's a pretty decent volley there. Probably got about 5 or so of them. Really managed to whittle down his cavalry at the very least. He was a little bit more conservative with them than Amar. Amar was very, very aggressive with his cavalry. He dived right into my my archers and into the archers of Doriath as well. So he paid the price, but he did manage to sweep a lot more units off the field. And now we have a little bit of a cat and mouse game here. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this into 2.5 because I'm going to get the hell out of there. I'm going to retreat to this little area over here. And we're going to try and play Kingmaker a little bit. So I'm going to try and influence the outcome of the battle. And maybe, if I'm super lucky, I can influence it such that we'll be able to maybe eke out a win. Because we do have some decent things remaining. A Phalanx unit is no joke. Scouts with lots of ammo, still important. I've got Red Dirum, which buff morale, and I've got some skirmishers here. About 70 or so of them. So we're not in complete ruins, but we are not well off by any means. And now these two armies are going to kind of just shadow each other and look for a battleground that they feel is in their favor. So the Lancers are out here. They're going to try and circle around Amar's position. Well, maybe not. Melkon's going to be a little bit indecisive with what he wants to do with his Lancers so far. And he's going to begin to pull back with much of the rest of his army. I think that now would actually be a really good time for Amar to attack. This is... like, look at this army. It's super bunched up. You could surround him very, very easily. And he's got the missile units to really make that punishing. I think that's what he's going to try and do. So he's going to move forward here with a lot of his troops. Marksman of Balar kind of leading the way. He's definitely got a ranged advantage here. He can take his pick of what he wants to fight. Now the pikes are probably the biggest threat because he doesn't have any direct answers to them. So I think that would be a good thing for his 2 marksman units to focus on. And next would definitely be the herdsman. So focusing on the Edain and stripping the House of Hithlum of their powerful supporting units, I think would be the play here. Even though it's tempting to go after the Blade Masters do have a passive missile deflection bonus from the front only. So it's not necessarily as easy as you would think it would be, because those Blade Masters they're special as far as Blade Master units go, so they do have that special ability. But the House of Fingolfin going to retreat here. Melkon doesn't really want to take that fight just yet. Gonna make Ammar chase him a little bit. Probably to a position where he's got his back to the river, and he can't necessarily be surrounded or outflanked. Which is gonna be what Ammar needs to do to win this fight. His infantry, while numerous and brave, is not as good or offensively oriented as that of the House of Fingolfin. So, pardon me. Sorry, I just had to clear my throat there a little bit. So if it comes down to a straight fight, just a total slug match, then I think that the House of Fingolfin will almost undoubtedly come out on top. They've got the numbers, and they've got the quality. Marksman of Balar. I'm not too sure what they're shooting at, but hopefully at the centers of Hithlum. Yeah, Melkon's been running so much that a lot of his human units are starting to kind of feel the burn. And the First of Dorloman now tired. That does have a penalty on their combat stats and their morale. And even the Herdsmen of Hithlum are warmed up here. Yeah, so it looks like that's what Melkon is trying to do. Trying to prevent himself from being outflanked using the river and the red line. But although even if the red line wasn't here, it would not be terribly different. So can't get too mad at Melkon, I suppose, for trying to use the red line, because it wouldn't have mattered anyway. And now Philothrim setting themselves up. If I was Ammar, even in this situation, I want to try and play a missile game, basically, while all of this is happening. I want to try and focus some of his priority targets. But, speaking of missiles, I have my troops coming forward. I'm definitely going after the Philothrim at this point, I think. Because I think they were the first ones to attack me and like interrupt my fight with Doriath, so I want a little bit of revenge if I possibly can. And then if we go over here, this is where the Lancers are going to be. So I believe both companies of them are up here. They're looking a little worse for wear. What have we here? It's got some Eglarest moving forward. I think they see the one Lancer unit, but the other one's probably up there and hidden. So what I would do if I was him is you could take some Spear Host. The Spear Host aren't really much use in a straight fight. But I would take that Spear Host along with my cavalry and then go up there and try and trap them if I could. So general advance here from Ammar. And he's got some good things going for him. He's got Warriors of Eglarest, who are no slouches. Arankir Lim on his main line. Mariners of Eärendil. Although I would probably have put the Mariners over here, because the Arankir Lim also give morale, whereas the things are looking a little bit thin on the other side. So he's moved forward, but he's moved far more forward, I think, than he needed to, and he's moved with his entire army. So that, I think, is a big mistake. And now the House of Fingolfin is going to seize the opportunity to go on the offensive. And this is where they shine. Another shot popping off here, and they're going after some of the herdsmen. I probably would have gone after the pikes instead. And this, I think, is the biggest mistake, is letting these marksmen get caught out here. Ammar, I think, was really greedy when it came to getting that last volley off, and now half of his marksmen are going to get cut down in close quarters, and he's not going to be able to use them. So he's kind of thrown away an advantage here. Nice volleys, though, from the Marines of Eglarest. This is exactly the kind of thing that they want to focus down. I'm not sure what they're doing here. Looks like they're going after the Ferdsmen. I wouldn't have bothered with the Ferdsmen. They could be kept in check by just a unit of Spear Host per Thombar. You could have just put one of them here. And they would have done just fine for themselves. But this is kind of the really big threat. But we're seeing a lot of important ammunition being used on a unit that's not really all that important. So I think that Ammar is kind of off to a bad start here. He took a fight on Fingolfin's terms that he didn't really need to, and he got some of his important supporting units also caught out there as well. Now, big attempted flanking movement here. Sons of Húrin are going to counter that, and I think that they are in a perfect position to be shot at by all the marksmen that he does still have remaining. This would be my priority number 1 at this point. Some supporting units coming in there as well, the Armitar. They will cut their way through a thin line of Warriors of Eglarest fairly quickly. Some Herdsmen of Hithlum here, who's managing to get himself outflanked. Yeah, this is looking like it's gonna go the way of Fingolfin, I think, for sure. I mean, of course I know, but, you know, I like to build a little bit of suspense. I know what ultimately ends up happening. For some reason, the Marksman of Balar being thrown into combat. I don't understand why. He's got a very thick line here of, like, spears and things. And they're going to get thrown in there just in time for that whole blob to be focused down by 2 units of Marines of Vinyamar. So good place here on Melkon's end. Really putting the hurt on the Philothrim elite. His Marines here. Going after, I think, this big blob. So yes, this is a much better choice. And he should be able to cut his way through the Bladesmen here really quickly. Over here, things are looking a bit better for the Philothrim, but their wing is isolated and very weak. And again, the Marksmen of Balar being thrown in here. But then he's sacrificing their missile capabilities, which I think could be used to great effect to focus the center here as well. Or to shoot into the rear, say, of these Sons of Húrin. That being said, some decent volleys going off here at the center, cutting through the Blade Masters of Baradithel. And it's interesting. So now I've actually begun to move forward here. And I'm trying to take some shots with my Scouts of Gelion. Now I'm curious what's going on with the cavalry. Ah, yeah, this is bad. So the Lancers of Anonin and Galud have managed to get behind the Philothrim. Now these Marksmen of Balar are not... Oh, they'll turn around the last minute. The very last second, but it's not going to matter too much. And hopefully his cavalry manages to get in here and avenge the fallen marksmen. They're doing okay. He might kill off a few of those guys. I think that using the Scouts of Eglarest here to trap these guys would probably be the better option. But now as it is, they're going to be able to slip by. Oh, well, Ammar will see it. But it's too late. They've already managed to get through here. Well, it's definitely too late. Nonetheless, some of them will get cut down. More Lancers will come to the rescue. This is an opportunity here to finish these guys off. Oh no, the Herdsmen of Hithlum have managed to slip by the lines. Now they're going after Ammar's cavalry. Things are not going well for the Philothrim here at all, are they? In the center, they're still holding on. But they're starting to lose ground. And it looks like they had to pull their Nobles of Balar out for some reason. So I've been shooting away at some of the pikemen here, because I think that that's probably one of the bigger threats. And I'm going to continue to harass their lines. But I'm only going to be able to do this for so long. Once that cavalry is free, then I'm going to have to be a little bit more defensive. So the Marines of Vinyamar here are now out of ammunition. And they're a big obvious target, so we're going to shoot into the rear of them. Oh no, what do you know? Still going after some of the sentries of Hithlum, trying to wear them down if we can. And Philothrim here are being completely overwhelmed. Warriors of Eglarest kind of fighting a battle all by themselves. Another charge here from the Lancers. Might be enough to rout off the Marines that are trying to make a stand here. Well, they're doing their best. More units now surging forward. More of the herdsmen. More of the Lancers still in the back. Herdsmen of Hithlum have managed to surround the Philothrim center. And this is looking like a foregone conclusion. I'm trying to help out. I've actually got a small number of javelin men here as well. And I'm really giving it to the Marines and helping the Philothrum actually kind of stabilize things on this end, but it's Ammar is losing in too many places, so I don't think it's going to come to anything. I think that was probably Círdan. Círdan just got cut down by the House of Hithlum. The Sons of Húrin are in here as well, so we're going to start to focus them as well, if we can, to finish them off. As this is where the Hithlum general is at. So if we can kill him, that's a big win for the Philothrum. But I think Melkon's going to see it. And he's going to pull out. And move his Sons of Húrin to safety. And elsewhere, the Philothrum line has basically broken down to nothing. And the Host of Hithlum has come out of that pretty well, almost unscathed. There was a lot of things that Ammar, I think, did wrong in that fight. And I've pointed out some of them. But allowing the Lancers to get rear charges on him, not using his skirmishers to their full effect, and taking a fight on the Fingolfin faction's terms were probably the biggest things that contributed to this massacre here. Now there's still some troops left over. Well, some of these marksmen are actually routing. I am helping him out a little bit, putting some pressure now onto these sentries of Hithlum. But the Fingolfin player is beginning to pull back his entire army now, and he's going to probably will move as a unit and wipe out what remains of the Philothrum. And then it's going to come down to a fight between myself and my very depleted host of Green Elves, and this meat grinder right here, which is going to be pretty predictable. So let's go ahead and fast forward here just a little bit, and you can see the conclusion of this battle. Sentry's still running away, taking more shots at him, managing to kill a good deal of them. And the Philothrum have some remaining forces, but it's not too much, right? Now it's also worth noting, I think that my Doriath opponent had some troops left over somewhere, but you know what? I didn't see what happened to them in the battle, and I have no idea what ultimately became of them. They could have died anywhere out here, but they weren't. There weren't enough of them left to be significant. There's maybe like 30 or 40 of them left. Skellion moving forward, probably to take some shots, I think, at the Sons of Húrin. Nobles of Baelor here, setting themselves down in a defensive formation. The Marines are going to rush in and overwhelm them, probably. Still the odd unit here, fighting against the Nobles of Baelor. Some Lancers still alive. Looks like they might be... Yeah, they're going to swing around here and probably try to harass me a little bit if they can. Nobles of Baelor are actually being cut down here by nothing in particular. It's like tiny little elements of the Fingolfin army. Oof, jeez, they're having a hard time. Melkon's really dragging it out here, isn't he? I mean, you should probably just move forward and wipe out what remains of the Philothrum. There's a little bit of unnecessary passivity here going on, I think. Melkon, he can't be stopped, but he's kind of just dithering a little bit and not doing anything in particular. Well, looks like some of my scouts here have come under harassment by the Lancers of Anonin Galuth. There's another unit of them over here, but I think they get targeted and basically wiped out in a volley. They just got Last Samurai there hard. I'll have the opportunity here to flee and disengage with my force. And there's a little bit of a run here, leaving some other things that are still left over here. Someone's general just died there. I'm not sure whose. Probably the Philothrum. I thought the Philothrum General died earlier, but perhaps I was mistaken. And that's what's left of the Philothrum, making it a valiant last stand. Nobles of Balar are kind of out here. I think Amar was like checked out of this battle at this point, and he just kind of gave up. Just a bit unfortunate. Yep, so it looks like the High King of the Noldor is the only general left standing, so that, I guess that it was the Doriath general that died earlier, and then just now the Philothrum general died. Herdsmen of Hithlum gonna get a nice charge here against the Nobles of Balar, and they'll probably break almost immediately, honestly. They've been through a lot, these poor nobles. They'll manage to take a few of the herdsmen with them. Spear wall from the front is definitely no joke. Some more units charging in from the rear, and those guys will then break. And that's basically good night, sweet prince, for all that remains of that army. I'm still trying to take down as many of them as possible. Pad out my kill count so I can feel a little bit better about this this massacre. No, I don't like to give up. So if I can take down as many of his troops as I possibly can, then I will absolutely do so. We'll fight to the end here. I'm trying to put it up to 2x speed, as we're going to do a similar thing to what Melkon did and try to use the red line here to prevent my very limited forces from being outflanked. My scouts of Gelion are now out of ammunition. I've done everything I can to deal damage to the Hithlum army, and really all that's left now is just to kind of sit and wait for the end. Army of Melkon rushing forward. Let's get down and dirty. And my Green Elves brace for this final engagement. I've still got some javelins left over. Some of the skirmishers are going to take to the offensive, supported by the Randirum. And we're not going to win this fight. We're going toe-to-toe with some of the best swordsmen in Beleriand at the time. And predictably, this is going to be our last stand. Still got my little Hunters of Rathloriel in the back, trying to do damage. I think they're going after the Sons of Húrin, probably. Oh yeah, they definitely are. Do you manage to kill one? Maybe. Got another volley off there. I think we killed one. Maybe. I thought it was 42. No, it doesn't matter. And this is where the breaking happens. Our units begin to rout. Our poor Hunters of Rathloriel break and fight to the death. They die almost immediately, having been unable to slay any of the Sons of Húrin. And it's basically game over at this point. And we'll just let that play out. Now, I don't know why it didn't give us an end screen here. It's a little bit confusing for me, as I just admitted defeat, so it should have given us the end screen. But I think I ended up getting the most kills by like maybe 50 men, but I ultimately lost. So really well played to our opponents there. Definitely, it was a very intense match, and I really, really liked playing in this, and it kind of taxing my abilities to play this game to their limit, essentially. I'm not really used to playing as kiting armies. I'm not used to playing as Assyrian, so having to play as Assyrian in a situation where I'm fending off, one army and then elements of two different ones at the same time was actually really cool. And it played out all right. That wasn't a fight that I think near the end there, once the Philothrum began to lose, that we were really able to win. But it's a shame it couldn't have been closer. I think that Amar's army could have done very well if he had focused with his missiles, essentially. Instead of using valuable missiles on Ferdsmen, which are not important at all. I think having Spearhost Berthombar there to block off that means of outflanking his army and just contesting with the Ferdsmen would have prevented the House of Fingolfin from having an avenue with which to circumvent his line and ultimately get in behind him. So you saw some of the herdsmen there in the center. I think ultimately Amar just ended up being outplayed. Melkon did really well. He focus fired with his limited missiles, and it obviously paid off wonderfully for him. But Amar was not really able to do so. He ended up having to throw his Marksman of Balar in. They got caught out initially. He went too far forward and didn't really give his missile units time to fire. He could have delayed the engagement a little bit by just having, you know, some spearmen and his archers out front and just begin to kind of just shoot at the Fingolfin troops and try and pick off some of their more lightly armored units. We were able to do so with our green elves, and it obviously made a difference. So I think if Amar had been doing that the whole time, then, you know, it would have been a much closer game. Ultimately, who would have won in that situation, it's hard to say. But yeah, in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I will be recording several battles today because I'm going to be going on vacation from the 29th until the 4th. And I'm going to be going surfing. So I'm going to go out, enjoy the summer, enjoy some sun, and spend a little bit of time in the ocean. But before I do that, I will be recording several other battles. One of them will probably be a Reforged battle, but it really just depends on kind of what I feel like playing. We might have another live stream between now and then as well. So hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you next time.